Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jennifer Hardy and you're listening to the Unstoppable podcast show. I hope you are really well wherever you are in the world, and I thank you for joining us here today. So today I am speaking with the beautiful Kat. Now, Kat, if you've been listening to my show before, or the listeners out there will be laughing at this point because they'll know that I've stopped because I'm not quite sure how to say your surname. I always know, well, 9 times out of 10 I get it really wrong. So I would love for you to help me. How do I say your surname?
Well, the surname is pronounced Kuczynska, but I'm not going to hold it against you if
It's
you can't get it
beautiful.
quite right.
Kuczynska.
Yeah, ish.
Okay, awesome. So tell us a little bit about what your business is. I know that you've very recently went through a rebrand, which is pretty cool. So you did have a business, the Pet Advocate Society, and tell us a little bit more about what you're doing now, and maybe your decision to rebrand as well. How did that come around?
It was actually a really difficult decision to make because I've realized that I felt obliged to stay in the veterinary industry. So my first business, or I have been self-employed within the veterinary industry for the last 4 years. And when I then went into the coaching and helping more people, I then felt, I guess, obliged to stay within the veterinary industry. But actually part of the work that I was doing still within the veterinary industry was focused on wealth and building essentially the financial freedom for people, because that is something that is actually available to all of you much sooner than you might think and believe. And then very quickly I realized that Pet Advocate Society just wasn't big enough to contain all the ideas for the business that I had. But there was still this just like internal battle going on whether I rebrand or whether I just stick with my original idea. And I've just decided to rebrand because it was just something that felt right for me. But the way I look at it is the business is always an evolution, but there is that little bit of fear of unknown when you are stepping into something new. And that for me was invested in me. But actually now that I've made the switch, it was definitely the right thing to do.
Feeling so much more in flow and enjoying what you're doing then.
Oh, absolutely. It was even, like when you're creating the content and you're creating content on one thing, but actually you just want to focus on the other thing. And I was just internally like a little bit torn between what my business, what Pet Advocate Society was standing for and what it was that I was actually doing and the direction that I was taking it in. So yeah, it was definitely the right thing to do. So I'm very excited now to really just focus on Invested Me and growing it into the thing where I know it can be.
Fantastic. So tell us a little bit more about Invested Me then. What kind of, is it women and men that you serve, or?
In it, I am actually platform for women right this minute in time, and for me the big thing is the how behind women are with regards to things like savings and wealth and the actual the money side of things. So nowadays, obviously, we've got the equal opportunities to manage our own wealth and to build our own wealth. The opportunities to build all that and to look after it for yourself is the same across the genders, but the cultural mindset isn't. And there is a really interesting study that Fidelity did in 2016 that looked at essentially women in investing world. And 92% of women surveyed wanted to find out more about investing in stock markets. And even though most of women, which I think, if I remember rightly, it was 82%, felt comfortable managing the day-to-day budgets, their confidence plummeted to something like 27% when it came to choosing the right investment vehicles, if you like, for their retirement. And to me, it was actually really eye-opening, that research, because I've been doing it for years and I thought that everyone is doing it. Yeah. I really did believe at some point that every single entrepreneur, when they start the business, they will also start building their wealth fund and essentially building the pot of money that they can then live off and actually secure that financial freedom that I believe is actually behind every single business that we launch.
It's so interesting you speak about this, because obviously the way that my business is going at the moment, the next thing for me really to look at is things like that, is investments. And I'm not gonna lie, I am very much in that low 20, I think it was 27%. You said that I do not feel confident or comfortable thinking or knowing where to invest. So I think what you're doing is incredible, and I think it really is needed. And I completely agree with your point of women are behind the times. I speak to a lot of women like every single day, and like you say, they're quite confident when it comes to the day-to-day run-ins. A lot of the women that I speak to are extremely confident when it comes to their business.
Yes.
But when we ever get onto this topic, which at times we do, talking about, you can't just be taking all this money, and obviously after taxes and all the rest of it, you have to begin to look at investment, and a lot of us are pretty kind of clueless to how that looks. It's the first thing that pops into your head is, oh, well, property, but that's not always the best, isn't it?
No, it's not always the best. And property, although it is a very promising and historically has delivered brilliant results, it does have some shortfalls. And just when you are choosing your investments, you just have to be aware of the drawbacks, because every single investment method or every single investment asset, if you like, will have some risks, and it really does then depend on what it is that you are prepared to put up with and what it is that you're comfortable with. And for me, there is that big, I guess it is almost just lack of information about what the actual financial freedom is, because for me, it's not just about the money. And obviously the money is just vehicle for us to get there. But for me, having the freedom to just create into the world things that you want to create rather than things that you think are going to earn you living, that then changes what it is that you are actually giving back to the world and to the humanity. Because once you don't have to get up for work, what you create is your true passion.
Absolutely.
And having the freedom to live that type of life is absolutely possible. You do not have to have master degrees in finance or maths. You do not have to be super smart, and you do not have to be wearing the very expensive suits and ties that the financial world is known for. So for me, the message is just so simple, because it's no longer enough to just live our life well and, and be nice and all that. We have got tools to design our own lives. And virtually every single one of us can do it. I've done the maths, and I'm not going to be boring you with the details now, but if you actually start earning in the UK and you are on minimum wage and you start working from the age of 20, if you invest your money wisely, you are going to retire a millionaire.
Oh, I love things like this. Bore me with the details. I love the details.
However, you are not going to retire as a millionaire if perhaps some of the funds that your money is currently invested in has got 2 or 3% annual fees, because those annual fees then really mount up, and things like compounding effect then does actually take place, and it just strips your wealth. It strips your retirement fund. So the stock markets are only complicated because there is a whole shed of money to be made from the fact that people are not confident doing it. And if you think about it, your financial companies are essentially a middleman between you and the stock markets. So I'm not going to then go into too much details, but then think about those expensive ties, expensive cars, and expensive slots on the high street with their big offices. It's people are paying for it. It's not that they are super clever either, because actually there's been numerous research to say that huge amount of mutual funds or hedge funds, 96% of them are in fact underperforming when compared to a very low cost index funds over long periods of time.
I love this, Kat. I could talk to you all day about this. It's amazing. It's so interesting.
I think I've got another mission for me. It is really trying to empower people, because I'm obviously an immigrant. I wasn't born in the UK. So if a Polish immigrant with, handicapped English can do it, then virtually everyone can do it. There is absolutely nothing that is stopping, women to really learn more. And that confidence that you gain once you actually know exactly where your financial situation is, and knowing exactly where you're going with your wealth, it just, the confidence that gives you is incredible. And we do have the new age of financially conscious women that are starting to wake up to the fact that there is this world of, finance and money and wealth, and that they absolutely should be involved into this.
Absolutely. I want to be involved. And I'm sure every single one of our listeners out there also want to be involved. So where can we find you, Kat, on the online space? Because I know that there's I would love to chat with you again in the future as well, and I know that there's lots of people listening to this thinking, oh my goodness, I need a cat in my corner very quickly. Where can we find you online?
Okay, so you can find me on my website, which is investedme.com. I do have a Facebook page as well, which is also Invested Me. I am on Instagram under Invested Me again, and I've started Pinterest, but I'm not actually that live on it and that active on that just yet. I also do have a free Facebook group called Invested Female Society, where we are just diving a little bit deeper into the actual money and the personal finance things. And it's just a community that is quite safe space for all of us to just discuss the money stuff. So if you are not sick of hearing about money and the numbers and the personal finance, then you can join me there. Or alternatively, I do have a course on Teachable that I've just released, and I'm kind of going through it with some of my clients. But the very first module of that course is actually available for free for people to preview. So actually, if you just want to find out a little bit more about what money is nowadays, this is the brilliant place to start, because I think the first of all, we do actually, the whole idea of money is misunderstood. Money nowadays isn't what it used to be 100 years ago. And I think knowing a little bit more about money, then you can really understand why and how there is no limit to how much money you can earn and how much wealth you can secure.
Oh, it's so exciting speaking to you, Kat. So exciting. And I have got no doubt you're going to do some incredible work in this world. Thank you so much for having a rebrand. your work is so needed, so needed. Amazing, excellent. What would you say, just to finish off, what would be some of your, maybe just even 3 top tips that you could give us in order to just begin to get our finances together in a way that we could maybe then go on and invest them?
Okay, so the first of all is figure out your net worth. Now, the idea of net worth, I think, is currently just attached to celebrities, but actually for you, knowing your net worth it's basically everything, because it boils down, your net worth boils down to what is left after you no longer have a solid income, or income that is coming in every single month. And then the bigger your net worth, the more opportunities you've got to then make money out of that, whatever is left, if you like, in your net worth. So number one is keep increasing your net worth. And if your net worth is negative right now, then that's absolutely fine. Pour yourself a glass of wine and make a plan to start moving it in the upward direction. So net worth is the number one. Second one is be aware of the fees. Now, the fees are virtually going to erode your wealth. And you might have, or most of even entrepreneurs, they will have the old pensions which are still sat with their old employers and so on and so forth. If you are paying any more than 1% of annual fees for any of your investments, you are paying too much. And you can very easily educate yourself on how those numbers are actually looking. But just to give you an idea, 3% fees will erode about 50% of your wealth if you leave it for 30 years. So knowing your fees and keeping them under 1% is something that everyone should be aware of. So net worth and the fees, that's two. And number three is just start looking into it, because it really isn't as scary and as complex as some people perhaps made you believe at some point that it is, outside your skill set. It really isn't. The investing is actually really simple once you understand some of the rules. So you can educate yourself and you can really start small. You don't have to dive in deep and start investing with £50,000 that is all of your retirement. Start small, but do please read around and educate yourself. There is loads of tools out there, and you would be saving a small fortune if you just take a little bit of time to learn more about investing and stock markets. It's actually a really fascinating world.
Thank you so much. You've completely educated me already. I'm going to do some homework as well. So Kat, thank you for sharing some time and joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. And if you've got any questions, then reach out and find me online.
Absolutely. So thank you everyone that's out there listening. I'm sure you grabbed some golden nuggets, and I'm also sure that you want to find out more pronto. So if you just scroll down a little bit, you will find all of Kat's details underneath. And of course, if you want to know a little bit more about Unstoppable too, go a little bit further down and we are there as well. And I urge you all to go and book a call with this lady, because she knows her stuff, and hopefully she'll be able to set you on the straight and narrow and help understand some of the ways that you can be making your money work harder for you, so that we can have the life of abundance and beauty that we all desire and deserve. Thank you so much again, Kat. It's been a pleasure. Thank you all my listeners. I really appreciate you. And I'll say good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all. Speak to you real soon. Bye.